being something to someone is a lot more important than trying to just be bland and appeal to everybody.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Behind Their Success podcast. I'm Peyton Squires, the host, and this morning we have on Kristen and Kurt Luidhardt. They are the co-founders of the Prosper Group, a digital marketing agency established in 2006. Their leadership has driven the firm to raise over $500 million for Republican candidates, contributing to the election of 103 Congress members, 15 U.S. senators, 15 governors, and 1 U.S. president. They're recognized as the leading experts on liberty spenders, which is a $5 trillion market of conservative Christian consumers. They help businesses align their marketing strategies with the values of that demographic. Good morning, guys. Welcome on the show. So kind of just tell me what you guys do and what are you guys doing currently?
So we are now 18 years in business. The two of us started our company in 2006, as you mentioned. Like a lot of people, we started working in politics because we thought, well, we're going to change the world. And been doing this for 18 years. We've worked for a lot of really amazing, wonderful people who are really out spending a lot of time and effort trying to make the world a better place. But in the last few years, we've started thinking about business owners. And in fact, recently, I think someone articulated to me something I'd never really thought about. He had personally counted his number of employees, his number of vendors, and his number of clients, and came up with a number of 1,500 people. And he said, those 1,500 people I am impacting every day. I'm helping them pay their bills. I can share my faith with them. I'm impacting them. And it occurred to me, all these politicians we've helped elected, they go out to DC and then they have to fight over inches, right? We're in a very antagonistic environment right now. A good politician gets one or two things done. If they're lucky, exactly. But these business owners every day have impacts like this gentleman we talked to recently of 1,500 people that are dependent on them, some of them for their livelihoods, for their jobs, they're paying for kids' college, they're donating and contributing to charities in their local area. And we thought, maybe it's time, instead of just working for politicians and causes, we ought to work for businesses. And the other intriguing insight we had was that there's an increasing number of consumers who are considering values when they're purchasing a product. So not just whether or not they think the widget is better than the other widget, but they want to know, do the values of the company I'm buying from match my values? So we thought, let's do a deep dive into all these political people that we interact with all the time. So we took our voter database of 300 million people and we did a big nationwide survey and we scored them all to determine which are these consumers who are Christian or conservative, which is where our expertise is, are making decisions this way. And we identified 76.5 million people we call liberty spenders who, when they're doing business with you as a business owner, they're asking questions. Do their values represent mine? Are they donating to Christian or conservative causes, or vice versa? Do they care? And we actually saw an example of that just yesterday, when Walmart received some backlash from a large number of their consumers when it was discovered they were doing all sorts of things with their customers' money, donating to causes they didn't support. And so these consumers are making decisions that way. It's why Walmart backed down from that stuff. And that's really what we're spending a lot of time on these days, is helping businesses to capitalize on this market of 76.5 million people who spend $5 trillion a year and find a way to do business with them.
Yeah, that's interesting stuff. I mean, you're kind of, your whole business model is wrapped around, I'd say a niche market. I mean, it's a huge market. Connecting businesses, right, with that. Yeah, with it.
If I could add another flavor to it, Peyton, because Kurt's great about showcasing the trends and where we saw some opportunity, but just being transparent, it's just, our hearts are we just really feel called, and we really feel like there's opportunity to help a lot of business owners who, again, we've been there, we've owned multiple companies, we've started and exited multiple, we've had some great successes, we've had some colossal failures along the way. And I just know that so many entrepreneurs and fellow business owners that we talk to, they just feel like they're stuck. They feel like they're stuck chasing their goals, their revenue goals, and it's just very transactional. And once you hit it, you got to start over and hit it again. And we just saw an opportunity to help people like that, by using this strategy. And so for me, yes, there's this giant opportunity. There's this giant market. There's a way to differentiate in a very crowded, polarized marketplace. This is a great strategy. But for me, the extra added factor, X factor, if you will, is that for a lot of owners, this is another way also to add fulfillment to what they do, towards not just transactional, but they can see this as a way of saying, you know what? Okay, I do have some values that I'm already living out in my business, how I'm treating my employees, my customers. Why don't I be more upfront about that in my marketing, build that into how I do business, and I'm going to be happier, doing the same things that I've been doing for a long time, because I feel like there's some alignment with mission or what I want to accomplish. And so for me, that's really where it gets exciting. And, we want to add value to your listeners today. And so for me, that's the X factor. Is not only is this a great way to build your business and grow revenue and protect yourself against competition, but it also, if it aligns with you, adds so much fulfillment to what you're already doing.
Yeah, it adds fulfillment. But yeah, you certainly definitely a mindset of that, of looking the companies that, their shared values, right? And whether that's, you guys always obviously have a niche market, and, maybe there's other niche markets for different brands, obviously, to align with. But the whole overall strategy there is, I think can be groundbreaking for business owners to stand out and really express themselves, in the marketplace.
Absolutely. We call it conviction-driven marketing. And you're really looking at connecting with consumers on the point of their convictions, which is a little counterintuitive, because us Xers, for sure, grew up with our parents telling us there's only two things you don't talk about with particularly strangers, not even sometimes with family at a Thanksgiving table. Let's stay away from religion and politics. And now what we're saying to people is, why don't you actually connect with people on those values? Because that happens to be some of the most powerful, most emotionally compelling and identity level values that people experience. And so connecting with them brings a power to your marketing and to your relationship with your customers that doesn't happen. They're no longer saying, well, I liked this thing, but now the competition is 10% better or 10% cheaper, so now I'm gone. The customers who connected with you on the level of convictions, they're going to stay. Some of them will drive a little farther to work with you.
Pay a little more.
And they really want to see you succeed. The most obvious example are companies like Chick-fil-A and Hobby Lobby, which are really big brands. Chick-fil-A, I think, does something like $28 billion a year, or Hobby Lobby, $7.5 billion, both in the U.S. And, we're the kind of consumer, we're going to drive a little farther and past a couple of chicken places to go to Chick-fil-A.
And they hold their employees to a certain level of standard and whatnot.
Yeah. It's built into their ecosystem. We tell folks you're not a charity. So you can't say, I happen to agree with your values. I have a crappy product. Why don't you buy it? That's not going to work. And so Kristen's 100% right. I think a company that shares my values like Chick-fil-A, but who has a crappy chicken sandwich isn't going to last, right? And they happen to have, in my opinion, the best one. But I'm also willing to travel a little further. And we still work with them despite the fact they're not open on Sundays, which just happens to be the day when I feel cravings most for a chicken sandwich. And the same with Hobby Lobby. They're also closed on Sundays. And so it's been more than once where we've rearranged our schedule so we could shop there on a Saturday or a Monday or a Tuesday because we want to support what they're doing. And so I think it's a really powerful strategy to connect with people in that way.
Yeah. And I think just the listeners to be able to take away like that concept of like creating an identity and standing for something, whatever that is, whatever aligns with you as a, authentic leader and business owner, right? Or the brand, right? And by doing that, you're going to naturally probably alienate some people, right? Because you're aligning with something that maybe some of your client base won't. But the idea is you're aligning with something that your ideal client base, the majority, by aligning with something, it's a net positive, right? Not a net negative, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of consumers out there. It's a big, big world. And so there's a lot of business to be had. And there's plenty of examples. This has been going on for a long time. Patagonia is a great example of somebody who's been doing that. And their marketing is very clear. I mean, they're so passionate about protecting the environment, doing things on climate change. And so again, people can shop at Patagonia who don't, care about that. But for those that do, it really connects with a certain level of consumers, and they've done very well doing that. So to your point, it can be any level of spectrum, and it doesn't have to be controversial. It doesn't have to be partisan. People that just, are upfront about supporting veterans. There's something controversial about that. But for those people, it makes you feel, it can just add a little bit of an X factor. So there's a number of ways to do it. We're not trying to tell people to be something they're not or any of that. But even if it does turn off some people, you could do some analysis about your customers to see where they stand if you feel worried about that. But again, being something to someone is a lot more important than trying to just be bland and appeal to everybody.
Yeah, because then you don't stand out. Like nobody sees you for anything, right?
Well, then you're
Absolutely.
competing again on the margins of things that are just don't enhance loyalty or any of those things.
Yeah, we live in a world where you develop something really awesome. You sell it on Amazon for 2 months, and month 3, there's a Chinese knockoff you're competing against. They don't respect your patents. They don't respect your intellectual property. You can't go after them. And so you have to find a way, I think, to differentiate beyond some of those features and benefits because they're so easily copied. And this is where I think there's a real opportunity for distinction. And like Kristen says, there's spectrums of it. Even to go back to my first 2 examples, Hobby Lobby is very, very upfront about their Christian faith. And they actually put it in their marketing. Every Easter, there's Hobby Lobby ad in our newspaper talking about Jesus, right? So that's very upfront, very faith-oriented. It's in their marketing. Chick-fil-A, not so much so. You get it because they're closed on Sundays. Their owners have spoken publicly about their faith, but their marketing's all about cows saying you should eat more chicken.
Right. It's there, but not as
yeah. So you can choose the spectrum. There's a great company in Texas called Patriot Mobile, which has built up 150,000 wireless subscribers in competition with Verizon, T-Mobile, and Sprint. They're probably a company worth, $150 to $200 million. So a big success. They're very upfront about it. They say we're America's Christian and conservative wireless provider. So they're very upfront about it. But then you take a company like Black Rifle Coffee. Kristen was talking about veterans. The Black Rifle Coffee has a very sort of kind of pro-military marketing campaign. They blow a lot of crap up in their marketing. They do a lot of like cool stuff. They're shooting guns all the time. Yeah. And they're very veteran friendly. There's nothing controversial about supporting veterans, but it also speaks to an audience that really cares about that. The fact their name is Black Rifle Coffee probably turns off a few people who are not gun owners. You want to see more restrictions on that. But they also built a $1.7 billion company in the face of competition of much better known brands like Starbucks. And how would you do that if you just said, look, I have better coffee? No one cares. They don't. And I'll tell you, I've had Starbucks. I think they're okay. There's a lot of companies out there though who have better coffee, and they are beating Starbucks. And there's a coffee shop on every corner you're competing with if you're Black Rifle. And so I think that's where there's a lot of power in this approach.
Are you looking for a new tax experience? Looking for an advisor that actually brings you high-level ideas and proactively plans so you aren't overpaying your taxes? Or how about one that even just responds and communicates in a timely fashion? If any of that resonates with you, you probably just have a tax preparer and not a tax planner. And it is through the tax planning process where all the value is found. I'm Peyton Squires. I'm a CPA and owner of WR Tax Planner. We work alongside entrepreneurs and high-income earners, helping them pay the least amount of income taxes, both legally and ethically. We have saved our clients hundreds of thousands of dollars through specific strategies, and we guarantee we can find multiple tax saving strategies that your current tax preparer hasn't told you about. If that interests you, head on over to the contact page at PeytonSquires.com. There you can fill out a contact form and get a call booked to see what it would look like to have WR Tax Planners on your team. What skill do you think has led to you guys having all the success you've had?
I think a business owner having an abundance mentality, feeling like there's lots of business to be had around every corner, gives you an ability to be a great networker and a great developer of beneficial relationships, which I think has really been our strength, particularly when we built a business in politics. And the feeling in the political scene is you're always in intense, dangerous, and difficult competition with all of your competitors. And there are people who I am convinced in our business think it's their job to make enemies. And in our every employee, I tell them the first day in, it's our business to make friends and to be friendly with everyone in the space, with everyone in the industry, and to expand our network. And I think that's what's really helped us to grow, and people love dealing with us. We don't have that same kind of mentality like, well, if we don't get this client, there's nothing else to be had. And I started out a little bit of that when we first started. I thought, oh, there's only a limited amount of business. So every time somebody else wins, that's money off of my plate.
Right.
But
If they win, I lose.
it's never been that case. There's plenty of work to be done, and these relationships you can develop when you're not feeling that kind of, clinched up feeling like, of scarcity. I think that's what we've been good at. Our network, particularly in our side of the business, is really unparalleled. Of course, we've been doing it for 18 years.
Well, there's always new people coming in, so you can't ever rest on their laurels, as they say. I'm sure a number of people, when they talk about this, I'm sure they talk about the importance of mindset. He talked about an abundance mindset, but that's just so key. I know for me, when I'm struggling or I'm focusing on what I don't have instead of what I have, it just impacts everything throughout the day. And so whether some people start with meditation or thinking about gratitude or any of those things, mindset for yourself and for your employees, we bring in and we've done training on this for our employees because it impacts them. It impacts how they behave at home with their spouses, with their children, with their extended family. And the better off they can handle difficult situations, they can be resourceful, resilient. I find that in and of itself, so basic, but is actually quite challenging. That skill set alone is going to serve you no matter what comes your way. And you add that to not thinking about scarcity, it just opens your eyes then to think of new opportunities. You're more willing to be flexible when the market shifts, which as we all know now, it's like everything is changing so rapidly. Technology is changing, AI. So if you can't, be flexible and open-minded, that's going to hurt your ability to grow. And frankly, the relationship side has allowed us to do joint ventures, strategic partners, other kinds of deals with our own competitors that other people haven't because they're not afraid to work with us. They're not threatened by us. We don't bash them. So all of those things together, I think, are really helpful.
Yeah, mindset. We talk about mindset a lot on this
Oh,
show.
I'm sure.
That in networking, right? You guys say your network. It's so true. Like how you're always just sort of one relationship away from changing, your entire trajectory of your life. And like, I was not even realizing that, like, in my years of running my own like tax practice, meeting with 1,000+ entrepreneurs, how much I was developing a network there would be. But after doing it for over a decade now you really see the fruits of, all those seeds you planted along. My clients are out doing amazing things in businesses and making money and doing cool stuff. I get to be surrounded by a lot of cool people. It's awesome.
Well, and I tell you, if you've been patient, like you said, doing that for 10 years, if you capitalize on that, but trying to think about how you can serve first, how do you add value? I mean, the referrals, the network, now you have to be disciplined about it. And that's one thing that we find a lot of business owners really struggle with is maybe they are great at networking or they're great at serving and they add value to everybody they meet. They're terrible at asking for referrals. And so these are things that, if you can, find a way to build that into your system, wow. I mean, it's unbelievably powerful, especially in a professional services industry like you're in, like we're in. We're not selling a widget, right? We're selling ourselves and a service. I mean, that's everything.
So, on your all's journey here, what would you guys credit as the best decision you've made?
I think all of our best and worst decisions are always about people, right? Being willing to hire the right people, even if they cost a little more, and being a little picky about them has led to bringing on quality, amazing people that have been able to pick up the ball and do things important for the company. And on the other side, not paying attention to people issues has been can often lead to some of the worst problems, right? And so that's one. And I think kind of related to it, Kristen mentioned it. We had, at some point, in 2019, I remember just feeling like we're not breaking through in some fashion. You have to realize it sometimes you start with thinking it's somebody else's problem, and then you realize it's really your problem. And that was right around the time we went to our very first Tony Robbins event. And we had never really, everybody sort of learns about having a good attitude when we talked about that in elementary school. But it never really occurred to me how much my state and mindset, Tony talks about state and what state you're in every day really impacts everything. And it was so obvious when he's talking about it on stage. I'm thinking, I don't understand why I had to pay $500 to get it hammered just to get like a normal average everyday thing. But it's just so obvious. Like when I am in the right state and Kristen's in the right state, we have a wonderful marriage. When I'm grumpy, it has nothing to do with her. I'm focusing on something that puts me in a bad mood, or to Kristen's point, focusing on what we don't have. It doesn't matter what she does. I can be just grumpy, and it affects everything in our life. Affects our marriage. It affects our business. It affects our employees who pick up on our states. We kind of pass them on. So I would say that's the other big thing for me.
Yeah, that's great.
Definitely about people. And, coaching is another big thing. A lot of, again, business owners, it can be lonely at the top when you're striving and doing that. And so whether it's, networking groups, business roundtables, there's so much, but I am obsessed about getting coaching, getting that external feedback, building that into what my staff get to experience as well. We invest a lot. Historically, we have invested a lot because I just really believe in it. And when you have your people operating at a high level, and again, it's hard to track. It's not a direct ROI, but it's absolutely there. And so I would say for you yourself as the executive leader, coaching and then looking at that for your employees it's absolutely worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, that's great. And talking about, yes, you're never going to scale anything without hiring great people. To, investing in yourself, self-development. We talk about that a lot here as well of like, I'm in a mastermind group. I spend a lot of money on self-development.
Yeah.
And it's worth every penny, right? Because it's investing in myself, it's investing in my skill set that, that's about the only thing people can't take away from you is your skill set. It's huge in that. And that's a common theme that, we have on these interviews over time is the people that are successful is the constant curiosity of learning and getting better. And your standards you set in your business are like the highest standards they're going to be in the business. And meaning like your standards you set up here at the very top as a leader are only going to right. As you go down your hierarchy and all your people, your standards are only going to get diluted a little bit, right? Because people aren't going to live to your standards maybe as a leader. So the constant bottleneck is you as a leader having to up your standards, up your game so everybody else below you can.
Yeah.
I think I forget if it's Edmund Burke. I know it's one of your favorite quotes, but you cannot leave further than you've gone yourself. So that's key. So if you want everyone else around you or you want your business to improve, you have to do that work first. And then the other principle we had learned actually it's an expression that Tony uses is CANI, C-A-N-I, constant and never ending improvement. And I know for, again, a lot of businesses, it just can feel overwhelming. I got to improve this. And it's where do I start? How do I do it? And if you can just make incremental steps little by little, 1% better, 1% better, 1% better, it's a compounding effect. We understand the principle of compounding with our money and other things. The same is true with your effort and making those improvements. And so anyway, just what you said is amazing. And the masterminds are key.
Oh yeah. The biggest thing for the masterminds is not even like unique tactics or practical things I've even taken from it. It's really just being around other winners and like you just seeing what's possible. I mean, literally being around people and be like, oh wow, you're doing 10x what I'm doing, and you're just a normal person. Well, I can do it too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
and what are you doing that I'm not doing?
Like next to them from, small rural Missouri, like, I didn't know any millionaires growing up or whatever, right? And being around those type of people, you realize they're not necessarily any different than you, right? They have different skill sets, made some different decisions, but like you could do exactly what they did if you start making the same decisions
You're right.
Yeah, your peer group is everything. And, there's been studies done about this that you basically are the average of your peer group. And so if you elevate your peer group, and that can be difficult, we're not trying to tell you to cut off people of your life, but if you elevate your peer group and you get around that, it just has an impact. If you're around a lot of negative people, it's really hard to break through that and succeed. And you're around people that challenge you, that believe the best in you, that tell you to be the best version of yourselves and hold you accountable. Your life will be exponentially better.
Yeah. Yeah, because you'll just naturally, we're all human beings. We like to think that we're these fantastic, rational, read and makers. Right. We'll get to human biology, right? And we want to fit in the group. And if you want to standards, the easiest way to do that is to change your environment that just has the standards that you want to set for yourself. Because eventually you'll feel bad enough if you're the only person that you're not living up to that standard.
Yeah.
So guys, looking back early in your career, if you guys can go back to 2006, you're starting your business, what is one piece of advice you'd give yourself?
So I think it would be to seek a lot of advice. You're kind of goes into the coaching and the masterminding thing, but making sure you're talking to people who've been there before. In 2006, I feel like, man, I was such a baby back then. I wish I was in my 20s again. And, you think you know so much. I've read a lot of business books, so I, of course, felt like I had all the tools. And if I had it all over again, I would make a better practice of sort of presenting what's going on in my business more frequently to people who've been there, maybe an unofficial board of advisors, somebody who could tell me, hey, I tried that before. Maybe you should think about it this way. So I can look back and say, there's a number of things we just didn't do right that I think if I would have asked a few questions first, I could have avoided some strife. And it's always been a great talent of mine because it requires me to slow down. And so that's one thing I would do.
Especially starting out, you just really want to prove. I mean, everyone's different, I suppose, but I know a number of entrepreneurs, there's some sort of chip on their shoulder or something driving them to prove that they can do something if they want to better their lives or better than what they had growing up, or they want to, again, they have this great idea that they just know is going to help in their industry or something, solve some unique problem. Yeah, the mentoring and being willing to ask when you don't know, and even when you think you know, double check it. Those are things I wish I had done more of. I just was so determined that I was going to figure it out, and I thought I had to figure it out alone. And you just don't. You just don't. And you're too, again, we were very young, and so we just didn't know. We didn't know what we didn't know. But I think thinking more of that out, and I think not succumbing to fear and letting that hold you back from asking questions or seeking advice from people. That was a big thing for me. I just really wanted to prove it. I wanted to do it myself. And it took me a lot longer to learn things that I could have cut all kinds of time. And so now when I think about when I'm afraid of something, and we don't think about that. We just think we're stressed. Really we're just scared. That's really what a lot of stress is. And so I'm just fearing things that haven't even come to be true. This is silly. Again, it goes back to mindset, but talk to some other people, find a mentor, and you'll save yourself a lot of heartache.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No, and Chris and I'm guilty of everything you just said there myself. I started my business over a decade ago, and I spent probably the first 5 years running kind of a solo practice on my own. And I thought, I want to figure this all out on my own and whatever. And honestly, it was probably just a bunch of insecurities. I thought afraid that I was maybe wrong or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Ready to get over that. This has been big, and also allowed me to grow now a real firm and have a team, and I can be a leader, and now a lot of my day is focused on how can I be a leader of my team.
Yeah. Something Kristen said, I think makes me think of something else that's important to share. I think, ultimately at the core, all of us are seeking some sort of identity, something that creates a justification for our existence. Why are we here? How do we know that what we do matters? And even though I'm a person of faith and I know deep in my heart that I matter because I was created by a God who loves me, who loved me so much, he was willing to come on the cross and die for me. Even though I know that, even though that's the ultimate proof of who I am and why I'm important, I often found myself thinking I really needed to prove it by being successful, by making more money, by, I'd hear a speaker talk about real estate and what he built. And like, well, we got to do that, right? Because that's
what
that guy looks cool. He's cooler than me. And I, I wouldn't say I was out accumulating sports cars or anything like that, but I had my own definition of what it would cost. And, we'd go to a finance conference and they would talk about, oh man, wouldn't it be awesome to build up a nest egg that you could live off of? And so you're starting to calculate these giant numbers like, well, I want to spend $1 million a year. So if I want to spend $1 million a year, I need to have a nest egg of $1 million because then I can live off of this percentage. And you're starting to put all this stuff in because in some way, for me at least, it proved that I mattered and that I was accomplishing something. It was progress. And it also took me 20 years of that sort of hamster wheel to realize I was turning myself into a very miserable human being. And I think maybe with the kids coming, because kids are an ultimate obstacle to that kind of thinking, because my kids aren't utilitarian. I get love from them. They love me. I love them. We enjoy our time, but nothing I am doing with them is contributing to my nest egg. In fact, it's reducing my nest egg. The time I spend with them prevents me from working on my
where the money is then.
And so I had kids, I felt this conflict and it started feeling a building resentment of my children because they were getting in the way of that. And there was a moment when I just felt smacked over the face on that, a spiritual revelation where I was reminded, like, I've created these sort of counterfeit gods, if you will, that I've made more important. And so I think if I were to go back to mini-me in 2006, I'd say, you know what? It's good to have dreams and goals. You should have them. But just know there's no ultimate satisfaction in making 2 million over 1 million. And the moment you get to 2 million, you realize there's somebody making 4. And then you see the person making 50. And all you do is you immediately, there's no end to it. It's like you're hungry, and no matter how much you eat, you're never satisfied. So I think that would have saved me from a lot of stupid decisions too, that I made for status and success, And
it drove us to achieve those things, but ultimately it wasn't rooted in, I want to hit this level because of the impact I can make.
Yeah.
Now, once you trade that, you have the same drive to build and to grow, but it's a very different meaning and a very different reason why you're doing it.
Just realizing I don't need this stuff, right, to make meaning. I actually don't even need, Kristen's right, when you feel like you're doing good in the world, but I actually don't even need to do that to know that I'm worth something, right? And for me, that was the thing. And I still struggle with it, right? Because everything in the world is telling us, go buy more stuff, go get more stuff. And as a man, I'm always comparing myself to every other man in the room. Who's kind of the coolest, who's got the biggest status, who's in the best shape. I don't know.
Well,
whatever.
I don't want to miss out on this new hack, this new funnel hack, or this new way to grow my business this way. I got to learn this new thing. And
that would be something I would say to 2006 Kurt.
Yeah, that's all great stuff. And it's just, I think everything we can talk about on this podcast and this episode as well, it's just ultimately it's become self-aware as possible, right? Become self-aware as possible. And that's going to allow you to navigate the world in the best. That would be the ultimate superpower. If you were ultimate self-aware, you could pretty much accomplish anything.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, guys, this has been a fantastic conversation. I appreciate you guys coming on. What's the best way people can connect with you, get to know a little bit more about you, your company, Liberty Spenders? What's the best way they can reach you guys?
Well, we did make a special landing page just for you, Peyton, and your folks.
Awesome.
So if you're interested in what we were sharing about conviction-driven marketing or Liberty Spenders, which is who we talk about with this audience, you can go to libertyspenders.com/BTS. And we've got some goodies there for you. We just wrote a book. We're giving it away for free. You can learn more about that yourself. You don't ever need to talk to us again, but if you're curious to learn more, you can get it there.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, I appreciate you. This has been a fantastic conversation. And listeners, we will catch you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you found it valuable, please rate, review, and share it. That is the best way to help us build this and reach more people, as we're trying to accomplish our goal of help creating more healthy, wealthy, and wise entrepreneurs. You can follow us on social media by searching for me, Peyton Squires, or going to PeytonSquires.com. On the website and social media, we're always sharing tips of personal growth, and there we can actually interact. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.